Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our second episode of On the Virge. Today is Friday, April 18th. Well, first I want to start out, I'd like to introduce my guests, and I always like to have my guests introduce themselves because I think it means a little bit more when they are telling me about themselves. So first, to my left here, I'm going to introduce Michaela, if you would.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. My name is Michaela Hammerson, and I am a chief petitioner for End Vote by Mail in Oregon. I'm also the chairwoman of Umpqua Public Transportation District, and we have some really cool things to talk about. I'm excited that Virgil invited me on to discuss some of those things today.
Thank you. Yeah, we're going to have a lot of discussion today about those topics. And to my right,
good morning, Trent Drake. I am the Douglas County Republican Central Committee Chair and your campaign manager.
He's also my flunky. He helps me with all this stuff. So
that's right.
I drag him along quite a bit because he's got a lot of spare time because he's older than me. So anyway, I want to start out with I've known Michaela for quite a while. She's very active in local politics, and I'll start out by saying this show is about 70% politics and about 30% everything else, and then there's going to be days where we may go 100% politics, and there may be days where we go 50% one or the other. But that's the cool thing about having your own podcast. You can kind of do whatever you want. So today I've asked Michaela to come on our show and talk to us a little bit about some of the things that are important that she's working on. And I will have to preempt it by saying that Michaela is one of the very few that actually has spent the time to come to Salem and meet with the legislators. Myself and Court Boyce, I believe Alec, made the rounds and talked to us about transportation. And I know it's a stretch sometimes to get to Salem to actually have those conversations, but if you ever have the time to come to Salem while we're in session, it means so much more than just an email. Emails are important, but it means so much more. So with that, I'm gonna turn this over to Michaela and ask her a little bit about the End Vote by Mail program. What's going on?
Yeah, so End Vote by Mail is not just ending vote by mail, actually. It's a lot bigger than that. But our hashtag, if you are on X, is hashtag EndVBM. And our goal is to return to the way that we used to do elections, really. Just a return to security in our election system, ensuring that we have chain of custody of our ballots, and that we're conducting same-day elections. It's basic stuff that's happening across the rest of the country, and it's not happening here in Oregon. And there's a lot of vulnerabilities that are opened up because of a lot of the things that are happening. We have ballot harvesting here in Oregon that's legal. We have elections that last more than a month. We have mail-in voting. We have people that don't have the benefit of having the privacy to vote. We hear a lot about, voter manipulation and things like that. Well, when you are not able to go into a polling station and actually go in and fill your ballot out in private, there can be a lot of pressure that's applied outside, or other people can be completing your ballot, and maybe you're just signing off on it. So there are a lot of vulnerabilities that happen. We're hoping to go back to in-person voting. There's still going to be options for people who can't make it in there. People with legitimate disabilities, our military members that are not here to be able to vote can get absentee ballots. People that are out of the country or out of the state for a variety of reasons. So it's not ending it completely. It's just putting, reasonable securities in place. And for the rest of the people that are able to come and vote in person, it is coming and voting in person. It's reintroducing counting at the precinct level. So we want hand-counted ballots. We want our elections to go back to the security that we used to enjoy. And then the other...
Give Republicans a chance to actually win a race.
There you go, yeah. Well, and the nice. Cool thing for anybody that likes holidays, I know I do, it turns Election Day into a holiday. So the not being able to get away from work or whatever, that solves that problem for a lot of people. It doesn't solve it for everyone, but for a lot of people, they would be able to enjoy the benefit of a holiday on Election Day.
So I saw something, and thank you for that. I think it's important that I know there are bills that are running in the Senate, or at least one that is trying to mimic that, and I think there's been several that have been attempted and killed over the past since I've been in office since 23. But this one sounds like it's going to make it to the ballot, and I think I think it has a really good chance of passing. But I wanted to talk a little bit about you mentioned making it fair and transparent. I saw something happen in this election cycle that really, to me, was a travesty, and I think we got a seat stolen from us in Tracy Kramer's district. At the end of the night, Tracy Kramer was up. I don't remember the number, but I want to say it was around 450 votes or more. And then we were literally celebrating because we didn't lose a seat in the House. We were still at 25, so we were not in the super minority. And then within a day or two, she was down by 2 or 3 votes. And then within a week, she was down by 185 votes, I think it was, because of course they kept counting. One of the things that I saw that happened, and the reason why there was such coverage, is because the Democrats had the union come out and go door to door. 10,000 door knocks is what I was told in her district, and they did the homework. I mean, they did this. Power to them for the fact that they actually did the homework. They sent union people to talk to union households. They sent moms with kids with their mom with the kid to talk to people, moms with kids and that kind of thing. But I really felt like. When you talk about ballot harvesting, to me, that just felt like they really stole the vote.
Yeah.
You think this will help out?
Well, I do think that it will help. I think for multiple reasons. There are a lot of vulnerabilities with ballot harvesting when it comes to, organizing and going to retirement homes, going to, we've even seen it in like university towns where ballots are mailed to students at their temporary address and not picked up. The problem is you don't want those ballots sitting out there. Does it mean that they're going to be taken and that somebody's going to, fill them in the way they want to? Not necessarily, but we shouldn't be leaving that open.
We'll give the opportunity.
Bad actors.
Yeah.
So we need to tighten those things up. I think the other problem is the length of the election. In this particular circumstance, my understanding was that vote didn't switch over for quite some time after these mail-in ballots started trickling in over several days. There's a lot of time to manipulate those results, and there's a reason why we don't start releasing the numbers until the polls close, right, and in other places. And there's a reason for that, so that it can't be manipulated. And when you have days, weeks after the election to manipulate that, I mean, I hope there aren't bad actors, but it certainly raises the question. And if we can't have confidence in our elections, that's a problem for all citizens.
But yeah, people don't want to vote if they don't feel like the vote counts. Right. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, I think she hit on the big key word there was confidence. And that seems to be the mainstream political buzzword in America today is we got to have confidence in, who's running. We got to have confidence in the system. We got to have confidence in how it's going to turn out. And a lot of people have went to an extent to really negate that confidence, for lack of a better term on that, instead of having deadlines and responsibilities, a lot of things that we were raised on. I remember, not that long ago, I worked here locally, and my boss that I worked for, it was Tuesday voting day, and you voted? Yeah. He said, no, go get down there and vote.
Yeah.
And that was an exciting thing to do.
It's an important thing to do.
Yeah, and they made it important where it's like they're minimizing the importance of what that vote is.
Yeah, I had in 22 for when I was running for my first office term, I was at the Republican headquarters, and I had a guy come in, and I didn't know him. I still don't know his name today. I probably could have read his ballot, but he basically threw his ballot on the desk, and he said, "Here, my vote don't count. I'm not going to vote." And I said, "Well, what do you mean your vote don't count?" He says, "Well, the election." I don't know. He said a bunch of stuff, and I said, "Well," if you don't vote, then that's just like voting for the other team. I said, "You should vote." "No, it's a waste of time," and he walks out the door with his ballot left in front of me on the desk. So I ran him down on the street. I said, "Hey," I go, "you just did what you're accusing of people having the problem here." I said, "You left your ballot with me. You don't know me." Right. I said, yeah. So he walked back into the office, and he took the ballot and he tore it up, threw it in the garbage. And I was like, I mean, and I get it. I understand people get to the point where, hey, we just absolutely think this is a complete, criminal thing going on. It's like, but what if it's not? What if you actually vote? And we got to be careful we don't lose those voters.
Absolutely. I agree. And that's one of the big things that we're facing with pushback with this NVBM petition is how do you vote your way out of a corrupt system? So if we believe that these elections are not necessarily legitimate, if they're able to be manipulated as much as they are, what's the point of putting anything on the ballot and voting on it?
Well, and to that point, and I think this is how Trump won, because, of course, the ballot, the election was stolen in 2016 or whatever it was, or 2020, sorry. But the fact is, this time he overwhelmingly beat them so bad they couldn't cheat.
Right.
And I mean, because I remember that night, I was watching it on TV when he lost, and it was like he was up, but then all of a sudden I woke up the next morning, he's down by 300,000 votes. And where did those votes come from? It's like, but I don't, frankly, again, this is a political show, but I'll just say it. I don't trust Democrats. I think they have an agenda. I'm not sure that their agenda is a planned agenda. I think it's just an assumed agenda. I don't think they sit around thinking about how they're going to take the power away, but it's assumed that they're going to always work to do that.
Right.
And that's my thought on it. But any closing thoughts on that?
Well, I think the opportunity that we have right now is probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in Oregon to actually make a difference. And I agree with you, the too big to rig, that's absolutely a goal that we need to have.
It's a good thing.
It is.
Yeah.
But the other part of it, which is so cool, is that we do have a president that just issued an executive order and is attempting to make our federal elections in person across the entire nation.
Right.
If that happens, then we have a really weird situation in Oregon where we have two elections, two ballots, and when these results come out so drastically different between the federal and the state elections, we may have a problem. So I think that there's some incentive to do one election instead of two. I don't think the people want to do two elections, and I don't think that those discrepancies or potential discrepancies being revealed would be a good thing for anyone. So
totally agree.
There's some motivation, I think, to get this passed, and hopefully we can. I just found something out this morning.
Well, do tell.
So this
sounds exciting.
This is the first place this is being announced. So we did get approved for our initial ballots, our sponsorship signatures. Those were turned in to the Secretary of State. Those were approved, and that was very exciting. The next step was for our petition to go to the Attorney General's office, and they were to draft a ballot title, and that has happened. It was due today, and I just got an email, so I wanted to read you guys the ballot.
You're still young enough to do it without glasses, so congratulations. I am not.
So it is, the caption is, amends Constitution, requires in-person voting with photo identification, voter registration, requires proof of citizenship, other provisions. So now we are going to be in a comment period, and any comments on the draft of the ballot title are due by May 1st. And can we maybe put like the email address or the contact information maybe up on the screen?
I think we could, yeah. We can. We'll probably have to do that after.
Comment. Okay, yeah. So I can give that information to you.
Yeah.
But super exciting. So it's moving right along, and we should be ready to collect more signatures shortly after this period is over. I'm anticipating all the county fairs. If your county has a fair and you have a booth, contact me and I will get you petitions.
Turns out we're going to have a booth.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to have lots of booths here in Douglas County, but this is a statewide thing.
So you just for chain of how this thing's working. So you've got your signatures to get it initially heard, and then how many signatures do you need now to get it on a ballot?
Of course, I don't.
Just carry just your own number.
It's like 250,000.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like 1% of the voters and from the previous year or something like that.
Yeah, it's massive.
Okay.
It's a lot, but we already saw once this sort of started gaining some attention. We've actually already gotten more signatures than we can use for the initial sponsorship.
Sure.
But I think it's going to take off. People are excited about this, and we can do the e-signatures too. So people can vote to endvbm.com. Once we don't have the petition up because it's not finalized yet, but once that's up, endvbm.com, and people can find out information and get the petitions there.
I personally just feel like it's going to be wildly successful because I think people have had enough, and you should be able to, in a less than a couple of weeks, you should be able to get 250,000 Republican signatures, because I think Republicans feel more than anybody that we have literally lost out.
Right.
So this could make things even. I don't think we've had a Republican governor since it's been 30 years, I think.
Vote by mail started?
Well, shortly after, for sure, yeah. So this could be our opportunity to hopefully make things better for the state. And frankly, we're going to get into some of the discussion of how things are going in Salem right now, but things are not going well. The state is not doing well. It's going the wrong direction. So, of course, as always, when bills start happening and things start moving, we start getting emails. And I got an email the other day. Somebody blew me up for supporting this because they felt like, the best thing that ever happened in Oregon was being able to vote by mail, because they didn't have to leave their house, because of accessibility. And it allows people that, for the same reasons they think they could steal the ballots, it also gives them the reason to be able to vote when they don't normally, when they wouldn't normally be able to get out of the house and vote. So how do you address that in your ballot measure?
Well, so as I said a little bit earlier, we have the provisions for absentee ballots are still in there. So if you literally cannot leave your house, if you have, if there is a disability or a medical condition that's preventing that, and it's a legitimate reason that you need an absentee ballot, that's still available to you. It's available to our military members. It's available to people who are outside of the state or country. So there's no change that's happening there. For people who look at that more from a convenience perspective of, well, I like to sit down and go through the voter pamphlet and vote at my kitchen table, like that's convenient for me. Those things are very important, and nothing prevents you from still sitting down at the dinner table and going through and studying those measures or the people and making informed decisions. But it does allow the privacy part of preventing coercion that can also happen at the dinner table. And, we see the other side talk about that in other states. I did see a big campaign during the last presidential election that specifically was calling out some of those, you don't have to vote for Trump just because your husband does, sort of thing. But, and you know what? I agree. You don't have to vote for anybody that your spouse or your friends or whoever is telling you to vote for. That is a personal choice. And I believe that everyone should have the opportunity to make that private choice, at the ballot box. And this does help to secure the elections in that way.
Yeah, I think I'm thrilled that it has that part in it. I think that makes it even more easy for me to say, yeah, it's a good idea. So thank you for bringing that. Trent, you got any comments on that?
I agree 100%. Statistically, looking back, there's no difference. Back when we used to go to the ballot box, they said, well, some people wouldn't make it to vote. The amount of people voting are still the same today as they were 35 years ago in percentages of vote. Per capita, obviously there's more people today.
Sure.
But it hasn't changed. So is it really a matter of convenience, or is it just a matter of the same people are voting? So
I wonder, I made the comment a little while ago, we've had one party rule for 30 years. What happened? I mean, why all of a sudden did the trend change? Why did we go away? And the only thing I can put a finger on is vote by mail. When vote by mail started, things went south. I can't believe that the citizens of, like, for instance, on a given issue, let's call it timber, I can't believe the citizens of Oregon decided that the spotted owl was more important than, and the Democratic Party was more important than business and industry. And again, we won't even get into climate change legislation right now, because that would be a whole nother episode. But yeah.
Well, here's some nerd boy stats for you. So, like, when we were young. The majority of people that lived in Douglas County, I was born here. My parents were from the Midwest. They were from Oklahoma and Texas. My mom was from Nebraska. But so were all of my friends' parents. Their parents were part of the 1940, what they called land migration from central United States to the West Coast. As that changed, as we got older, that migration changed. It shifted from south of us, from California north. So we're really seeing the influence of really West Coast migration changes, and that's a lot to do with that. Yeah. In my regular workaday world, in my insurance industry, in my company, a bulk of my clients have California roots. Now, is that part of it? I would say yes. Is that the total reason? I would say no. Obviously there's more to that picture, but it's just something to look at. It's like, where are we from and how are we influenced?
Well, listen, we're going to have to cut to a little bit of a commercial break here and pay some of our bills and talk about our sponsors. But I'm going to leave here with the comment that I posted on social media here last week, and somebody had said it to me, and they said, "This ain't the Oregon we grew up in." And I think with that, we'll take a little break, and we'll be right back.
Is your 4x4 ready for the trail? Twin Peaks Off-Road is your first stop for maintenance, repairs, and custom upgrades. From differential services to winch installs, we do it all. Fast, reliable, and built for adventure. Don't wait for breakdowns in the backcountry. Call Twin Peaks Off-Road today at 541-900-0015 or visit twinpeaksoffroad.net. Keep your 4x4 off the roads and in the adventure.
So anything else on Vote by Mail? Tell me. So I know Ben Edel's helping you with it.
Yeah.
Who else is on your team?
And Steve Jonkus.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Steve Jonkus is our famous attorney that's been filing lawsuit after lawsuit, for corruption here in the state of Oregon. If you're not familiar with him, he's an election integrity guru, and look him up. He's been doing a lot of really good stuff for the state, and Ben Edel is. He is a warrior. He's out there. He got his start during COVID, and, his businesses were attacked in Portland and, targeted for the shutdowns, and he kind of refused to do that, and that's sort of where he gained his popularity and his foothold in politics. So,
sure.
So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm sure we'll have you back on the show again too, and as this thing progresses throughout the summer too, to talk about it even more.
Yeah.
But there's other things we need to talk about too. One of the things that is kind of a big issue going through the Capitol right now, and if you follow me on social media or even our last show, we've been talking about the transportation package. So the Democrats literally held the cards close to their chest. Again, this is a political show, so I'll call them for what they are. The Democrats did this. They have a whole plan of ways to raise money to not only build the bridge, that they need a new bridge at Portland to Vancouver, but they also need money for ODOT. Then ODOT has done wonderful with their budget. They just somehow lost $1 billion that they can't recall where it went, but it's gone. So frankly, I don't trust Democrats with our money. I trust ODOT even less. But this new package, I've seen some of it. You actually, Michaela, you went to Portland and went to some sort of seminar or something. Or I think you knew information that I didn't know.
So I've been following this transportation package for a little bit. The reason why is because being involved with Umpqua Public Transportation District, I got a few little hints that this might be coming. There was a transportation roadshow that they did last year, spring, summer-ish, and got a lot of testimony about, all of the problems that we have in Oregon and why we need money for public transportation and roads and all sorts of things, right? Mm-hmm. Lots of testimony was provided. But the end goal was to fill in these gaps, essentially, that ODOT has with some of the money that is not there. And then a lot of money that's been mismanaged. So there are a ton of projects, if you start digging into this, that there's millions that have been wasted, like on consultants. There's a huge construction project, the Rose Quarter project, that was started and then they haven't even broken ground. They've spent millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So this money that has just been totally mismanaged, and what they want to do is they need more money because they're probably not getting it from the federal government.
Heaven forbid they take from DEI.
Right, exactly. And we kind of see the direction of how things are coming from the Trump administration. If you continue with this DEI stuff, if you continue with the bad policies, you're not getting the federal funding. And that gap has to be filled by something. And what they're looking to do is they're going to take it from you guys because that's what they do. So they want to increase the gas tax, 20 cents. They're already getting 40 cents a gallon. They want to increase that another 20 cents. So there you go. Your gas prices are going up. They want to take it from your payroll tax.
A 16.9% increase, I think, in the payroll tax.
The way it was explained to me, and it goes up, it's like a staggered increase, but it's going to be a 400 times increase from what they have right now. So 4 cents of every $10 I think that you earn is going to go to this transportation package. And there are a lot of other things. You're seeing like the tire tax that was just introduced. There's all sorts of different ways that they're piling on the money. And you did a really good job actually on the floor the other day. You're talking about the
Facebook famous.
The rent control. Yeah, Facebook famous. You were talking about the rent control, and you go into all of these things. Well, if the Democrats really do value people who are struggling financially and really want to help them, why are they adding all of these taxes onto everything? You can't buy a car. You can't put tires on your car. You can't buy gas. Like, you can't do anything without paying more. You can't even go to work without paying more to fund this stuff. It is insane.
Well, and I think my feeling is that this is how, I don't know, a parasite works slowly. And eventually the parasite will kill the host, and they'll have to find another host. And I think we're seeing that in California. They've killed California. It's that state is gone, and Washington is following them, and we're trying to get caught up. But what I think's happening is they're going to take these little tiny bits at a time, and that way they get to avoid just flat out charging us an 8% sales tax on everything, right? Because they know that will be the day they will start losing seats. People will not vote for Democrats to vote for a sales tax, because we've never had one, and it would be, frankly, I think it'd be a horrible thing to do. But if they can get you, 8 cents here, 10 cents there, they're going to do it. And I know, thank you for your compliment on what I read off on the floor the other day. But there was some crazy stuff in that, and one of them was the $9.50 bicycle tax.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you kidding me? They want to charge you $9.50 to buy when you buy your bicycle,
Right?
And I suppose, and actually, I did see the breakout on that. It was going to raise not a lot of money, like $100,000 or $150,000, and it was going to go to some other ODOT crap. But if they just cut the DEI out of ODOT, that would take care of most of the small stuff, right? I mean, but on the other hand, Oregon I think ranks 2 or 3 in the nation for federal funding making the budget, right? So 36% of our budget, maybe just a slight bit higher, comes from federal funding. And I have almost daily somebody asks me, well, what's Trump doing to Oregon? I said, well, I don't know yet. We don't know what he's going to do. I think he's focused on those that are being the loudest right now, and I think that unfortunately, our leadership in Oregon is going to be a real issue. She's doubling down on every single thing that she can. They're making all of the agencies comply with DEI, and it's going to come at one time most likely, and it's not going to be good for all of us. It's going to hurt. We're going to feel the pain, but I'm willing to take the pain.
Yeah.
I mean, I really am. What do you think, Trent?
I agree. And it's been said for a long time, people will start to understand when they hurt bad enough. And I think we're starting to see that, and we keep talking, hey, we're in such a great point in history, 26 is coming, and in between then it's going to sting. But remember, 26 is coming, and then back to our original comments, that means your vote counts.
Yeah.
So whatever you do, vote. Yeah. It's not only is it a right, it's a privilege.
Sure.
Because a lot of countries around the world, they don't get that,
they don't get
and
that.
they're told how to vote.
Yeah. I had a lady a couple days ago kind of lit me up over aren't you concerned that we're losing all of our Forest Service employees? Like, frankly, I think they all should go. I mean that obviously a little bit in jest, but the fact of the matter is the Forest Service is a corrupt and has been corrupt for years, right? And it's BLM, same thing. And 54% of the lands in Oregon are owned by the BLM or the Forest Service. I mean, so all of our timberlands for the most part. And what Trump has done now, he said, no, we're going to log those lands. Yeah. We have to log those lands. And actually, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on that isn't really being talked about much yet, because the problem with that, and this was a discussion I had with a lobbyist that used to be Val Hoyle's chief of staff. Now he's working in the lobby. I said, here's the problem. And actually, this was a phone call we had yesterday with ODF and the Department of Forestry as well. I said, you guys they want to give ODF money so that ODF can add 20 employees roughly to their base so they can handle all of the NEPA studies, right? Which I'm kind of going, that's I want to say it's probably a $10 million ask, something along those lines. But the way federal money rolls into a state, they don't just write a check, right? Somewhere in the state, there has to be an agency that takes that money and oversees it. And that's just how things work. So I kind of get it. But I told them, I said, here's the problem. You guys want to ramp up and you want to start cutting trees. The problem is we haven't cut any trees on that land since the 80s. I said, so we have trees that are probably going to be around 36-inch average at the base. All of our mills have re-geared to run 24 max.
Yeah.
I said, so I don't know, some of this money that's coming in is going to have to be spent on industry to get the infrastructure back up. I said, and we don't have 2 years to do this. This has to happen pretty fast. So they know it, and they acknowledge that. And then, of course, I had a discussion on the same call with the ODF agency, and I'm like, I understand you guys need more people, but I said, to say that I trust you guys over the Forest Service would probably be a stretch, because I said, to me, having Cal Mukamoto in my office telling me that the only reason they're going forward with the Habitat Conservation Plan was to keep the state from getting sued by environmentalists. He said that to me in my office. Of course, he's gone now, but I said, well, why not? Let the state get sued. Let the environmental groups come in and sue us. Who cares? We got money.
Right.
So there's a fight coming.
Yeah.
We'll see where it ends up. But
so this same fight seems to be happening all across the state, across multiple agencies. And it's interesting because a lot of it is coming from Trump. Like you said, it's these executive orders that are shaking things up, and there's an uncertainty about where is the money going to come from, And if it's not coming federally, guess what that means? Coming from the people here in Oregon.
Yeah, which we, can't afford.
Right.
No.
I mean, I don't, people are living, day to day. And, Trent and I were just talking about rents. We were talking about, renting your house and he, what would have been when I was younger, I could have rented your house for $500 a month.
Right.
And that would have been a decent deal. Today, I'd be lucky to rent it for $2,000 a month. It's probably going to be more than that. But again, our land use laws have restricted us to what we can build and where we can build, which brings me to my urban growth boundary bill that we just got out the House floor yesterday, which actually changes some of the urban growth boundary rules around Roseburg, which allows us to start building again. Potentially, of course, there's landowners involved. They have to decide they want to. But that is the type of thing that has to happen statewide. Otherwise, I just don't see an end. Well, like you said, where do these people come from? Where are the homeless people from? Because they weren't here 2017, 2018. Now they're here, and they're not from Roseburg, most of them. So, I don't know. Worth the discussion.
Right. Well, I think we've lost control. We've lost control of a lot of things in our state, and we are attracting the wrong things. We are attracting drug use into our state. We're attracting people who are not functional, that are not giving back to society. And, for me, it comes down to you got to get involved. Yeah. Like, if you want to change your community, and you don't have to do it at a huge level, you can do it small in your local community, but get involved. Be part of a neighborhood watch. Be part of, we have special district elections going on right now. You said in your last podcast, some of those seats are going unfilled because people are not stepping up and being involved in their community. If you want to know what's being done with your money, with your tax dollars, go be part of a budget committee. Go sit on one of these committees if you don't know how to get involved, I know this guy will tell you how to do it.
Yeah,
I'll tell you. You'll tell him. You have resources out there. Reach out to the people in your community that have that knowledge, and I think that people have to get involved. Your choice is you're going to be priced out of everything, or you can get involved. So I don't think that that's much of a choice anymore. It's a clear choice to me.
Yeah.
So,
and that's why I got into politics, because frankly, I saw exactly what you're talking about, and I felt like the representative that was in the seat before me wasn't doing a lot of work to fix that problem. Now, since then, since I've got into politics, I realized that being in the minority party, you can work your butt off a lot and still not get anywhere.
Yeah.
It's like spin your wheels. But my theory on that is, don't you make them earn every bit, everything they want, they got to earn it. So I call them out. And I'm not the guy that goes along to get along, even though I think I've heard some people say that. If you want to get past me, you're going to earn it. So that's kind of how I look at it. There's some statistics that I think people would find interesting. As you know, we're in the middle of our 83rd session for the state of Oregon. And right now there is 1,672 bills still alive and still in play between the House and the Senate. We started out with almost 4,000 bills, which is just a crazy number. In 23, I saw 3,000 bills, and I thought that was a crazy number, but more and more bills are coming. 987 of those bills are House bills, and 685 of those are Senate bills. In the House itself, there's still 438 bills alive, and 114, this is with Democrats, 114 bills have passed the floor, which means they're on from the first chamber to the second chamber, they're headed to the Senate, and the way the process works, it goes from the House to the Senate and then to the governor to sign. So again, 114 Democrat bills. There were 250 Republican bills still alive. In comparison, there's 438 Democrat bills, 250 Republican bills. 50 Republican bills have passed the House. 3 of those are mine. So I'm pretty happy about that. Although I'd like to see that number be a lot higher. And in the Senate, the Democrats have 234 bills still left alive, and 79 have passed the Senate floor, and they're headed to the House. So we'll start seeing those next week. They'll be coming to our committees for review. And then on the Senate Republicans, 211 bills are still alive, and only 28 of those have passed the Senate floor. Just to give you a kind of a concept of really who runs the state. This is a number that probably means more than all the rest of the numbers combined. There's 543 bills parked in Ways and Means. And what a lot of folks don't understand is Ways and Means is where bills go to die, right? Ways and Means they don't have to come to the House floor or the Senate floor. They go out of committee and they're referred directly to Ways and Means, and they look at them for budgeting purposes. And this is where your gun bills are right now. The 3075, 3076 are parked in Ways and Means. So it'll be up to the Ways and Means Committee, the Democrats and the Republicans in that committee, to decide whether it's going to actually come out of that and go onto the floor. Also, this is where all of your capital construction projects go. So when folks come to us and ask for money for projects, for community projects or whatever, that's where those bills go. Now these are bills, so the requests also go to Ways and Means as well. This is also where bills like, for instance, there's a bill floating around that would eliminate flavored cigarettes and cigars and vapes. That, I believe, cleared the Senate floor, and now it is sitting in Ways and Means too, and I hope it dies there. It was only like a $250 billion tax hit, basically, to the state. So a lot of things get worked out in Ways and Means. I am not on Ways and Means, and I am happy I'm not on Ways and Means, because those poor folks, they work Fridays and Saturdays, and then they go on road shows, and they just, it's one of those committees that has probably more control in the whole state than our governor does, believe it or not. As of, and I announced this, I think, in our last podcast, but as of about a week ago, 20% of the bills that had gone through were Republican bills. 30% of the bills were Democrat bills, and 48% of what was left of that, or 48% of the bills, were agency bills, which means when you talk about Democrats and Republicans, what agency bills are, those are committee bills that the governor owns. So that means the governor approached the committees and said, I want this bill, or her office did, or whatever agency. So right now, the most effective legislator in the whole state is our governor, Tina Kotek. And that is one of those things about politics that people just don't seem to understand. So she's even more powerful than the whole Democrat Party in it. So anyway, guys got any comments on that before we cut to some other stuff here?
Well, anytime we're passing bills, I'm nervous. So, it's unfortunate that we have a super minority, but it's even more unfortunate that so many of these bills exist.
Right.
It's not responsible. You can't read that many bills.
Yes.
Nobody is able to responsibly vote on these, and shame on them for bringing so many forward. That's my thought.
True.
I agree. There's not much more you can put to that. I think we've got to, in some sense, if we just enforce the laws that we have, we'd be better off. And then maybe get rid of some of the stuff that's being pushed.
I completely agree. And there is right now there is legislation working its way through the House and the Senate with bipartisan support to limit the number of bills that can be introduced by anybody, except, of course, the governor gets a cutout. Her limit goes to like 400 or something like that. Everybody else is limited at, I think by this bill we're limited at 25. It's a sketchy one to support because it does. When you're in the minority party, your job is to get into the majority party.
Right.
When you're in the majority party, your job is to govern. So anytime a bill goes through that sounds really good, it's going to help us reduce whatever, you have to go, what are they trying to do behind the scenes with this? And so I don't know where we're going to land on that. We'll see how that comes out. But anyway, moving on real quick before we end our day, I had a couple of questions come through, and I just want to throw them out there, and I'll try to answer them. And maybe some other folks, if you guys would like to have input into it, that would be fine too. The first one, it says, this is from Kathy. No, I'm sorry, this is from Donna. It says, does testifying on bills in writing online have an impact? If so, is it the quality of the testimony or the quantity that has the most impact? That is a good question. So I'm going to say a couple things to this, and I'll play into another thing. I've had people say, "Are you guys reading my emails? And does it really count when I'm sending you emails?" And I've told people this, and I said the most important thing you can do is in the header of your email, subject line, make it yours. You could say, "Hey, this is," and for this particular instance was Milton Bernheisel. This is Milton Bernheisel, and I want you to vote no on Senate Bill whatever, because that tells me it's not a chain letter.
Right.
Otherwise, I might get 500 emails. They all read exactly the same. They have the same line header. They'll say vote no on this bill, and it's like you can't read 500 bills. But if I see one that has a name on it, I'm going to read it. I'm sorry, not a bill. It's an email. So that's good. As far as quantity of testimony or quality, I'd say both count. When you get a lot, and I mean literally, there have been bills, gun bills, and other bills have had thousands of testimonies, both online and in writing. The sheer number matters. But if it's not sheer numbers, you fall back to the quality. Right. So, don't quote things in your testimony that are just randomly opinions.
Right.
If you're going to quote facts, quote facts. And I tell people that in committee when they, I've had people come into committee and they testify, on like I heard some crazy stuff this week about how much garbage there was on the coast on the, this guy literally said that walking onto our Oregon beaches is like walking onto a carpet of garbage. I'm like, I don't remember ever seeing that. And I've done many beach cleanups with our clubs. So, when you're trying to baffle with bullshit, I'll just leave it at that. It's not going to work.
Right.
But if you're baffling me with facts, I'm going to go, well, I'm going to pay attention to that. Guess any comments on it?
No, I think that's a good point, though. You have to represent us, but we need to give you the information to do a good job of representing us. So sending things that are not true, probably not very helpful. Making you do additional work to sift through that stuff, not helpful. So yeah, stick to the facts. But if you know something, if you're an expert in your industry,
bring it to us.
Yeah, absolutely, because I'm sure you can use that on the floor.
And I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I've even read people's testimony on the floor, although that's kind of against our house rules, so I change it a little bit so they don't really realize that's what I'm doing. If you watch me on the house floor, I usually don't read a piece of paper, but I can sure get the point across anyway. Here's another question by Kathy. It says, what upcoming bills do you think have the biggest impact on the community and the state? Well, I would probably have to spend about 4 episodes of this show to say that. So, but I will say, and Michaela, you've been in the Capitol, so you've obviously you're testifying and you're seeing stuff too, and you're seeing it from the ground level. But I will say, to me, the most impactful bills that I think are happening right now, aside from homelessness and housing and the gun bills, is climate change legislation. We are working on a lot of climate change legislation that frankly is not supported at a federal level anymore. There's no EV rebates anymore, but yet we're forcing people in to drive electric cars. We are changing our building codes to force builders to put charging stations into multiplex buildings, and at the cost of as much as $50,000 per door. And that does not help our housing problem at all.
Right.
And it kind of goes on from there. And I've preached the climate change thing for a long time, and I'm going to continue to beat that drum. It's kind of my passion. We can talk about taxes, we can talk about gun control, all that other stuff. It all matters and it all has its place. But in Southern Oregon, when you take our diesel away and you don't let us drive our trucks and our tractors, we're going to have a real issue. We're not going to be able to feed ourselves. So, guys, have any comments on that?
We're facing the same thing at UPTD.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So I mean, there was a big push to get electric vehicles and sort of move us in that direction. It doesn't make sense for our area. We have, as Douglas County, we have such a bigger distance that we have to travel with our buses than they do in Portland, for instance. Electric vehicles don't really make sense, and so there has to be some consideration for that. What makes me hopeful is that because we don't have the federal support for all of these initiatives, I think it's going to die. I think they can try to increase the damage this legislative session with these crazy bills, but ultimately, I don't think that this isn't going anywhere long term. And I think that at some point they're going to have to admit that that we got to reverse course and make things affordable and practical for everyday Oregonians.
Hopefully we haven't gone too far before we get to that.
I hope not. Yeah.
Right.
I think I'll throw one more question out, and then we'll call it good for this episode. This question, I don't remember exactly who it came from, maybe Elaine, but Governor Kotek had doubled down on DEI in our schools in direct defiance of the president, and the majority of this country voted into office because of these crazy policies. How does that defiance directly affect all Oregonians in this state? Well, we haven't seen it yet. I think it's coming. I think we're seeing it in other states. And, frankly, our state is breaking the law.
Yeah.
Particularly when it comes to things, like Trump said. I mean, when we have men competing in women's sports, that's now not okay. I hope that when the funding is cut, and I feel like it's coming, I hope that, my constituents don't suffer too much, but I think we're all going to suffer a little bit. Same thing with the tariffs. I think we're all going to pay a little more here and there for a time being until we get our, this stuff doesn't turn overnight. Your manufacturing capabilities, I feel like we've lost, right? We've given it all to other countries for tax break reasons, labor reasons, whatever that may be. And now we have to come back and go, well, there needs to be a long-term plan. And that's my concern.
Right.
I think Trump's doing some really good stuff. It's hurting a little bit. There's some things he probably could have done a little bit nicer. But then again, a good CEO doesn't always do things nice. He does things that are right.
Yeah.
Right. But
I actually had one. He said, "I'm not here to make friends with the money."
Right. But my concern is, he's got about a 2-year window to get this thing really off the ground. And we need success for the next 2 years of his term so that we can make sure that we get, somebody back in office that's going to continue on his legacy.
Right.
So anyway, your thoughts?
My thoughts are, the people do have a little bit of control over this. We have a president that is supporting, movement in the right direction. And we need to, as, local communities, get involved again, run for special district elections, because you can make a difference at that level. We have a really great school board in Roseburg. My husband's on it, so of course I'm a fan.
Who's your husband? You might as well introduce who he is.
Steve Hammerson. Okay. So they're doing great things over there, and it's a very conservative school district. With Umpqua Public Transportation District, we have a great board there we just passed a resolution a month ago in support of these executive orders that have come down from the president. And we are removing DEI from our policies. We're actively doing those things right now to be in compliance with federal regulations. And when that money stops coming in to Oregon in general, maybe it will be filtered to, the agencies that are in compliance, and that's all we can hope for right now. But
It makes sense. The Border Patrol, I'm good with the squad down there. They're doing a fantastic job. Trent, you got any closing thoughts on that?
Actually, I think you guys covered it very well. And again, we're just having a discussion.
Yeah,
and people got to realize that out there. And again, it boils back to your vote counts. So if you're listening out there, when it's time to vote, vote.
Yes, agreed.
Pick your person and vote for that person.
And I'll close with this. I was elected as a representative, roughly representing 75 to 77,000 people in Douglas County area, mostly, primarily. I think pretty much my entire district is within the boundaries of Douglas County. I don't really care if you're a Democrat or Republican. I care about our way of life. And whatever I can do, it doesn't matter if you're a farmer and you're a Democrat and you don't like me, that's okay. I still represent you. And if I can fight for your rights, I'm going to fight for your rights, because that's why I'm here. I mean, there's no win in this for me. I mean, I'm here for you, and I'll tell you right now, it's not a retirement job. Let's put it that way. So anyway, well, yeah, it's a lot of work. Yeah, Michaela spent some time in the Capitol. She sees some of the stuff we do. Anyway, well, hey, thanks everybody. Thank you, Trent. Thank you, Michaela, for coming and chatting. And I hope to have you both on again. And Trent and I will probably be regular people here on this thing all the time. Hopefully we can get you back, and we'll keep talking about vote by mail. And anything else for me?
Oh,
cool.
That's it.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys on the next episode, and thank you so much. And I just want to get a little mention in there for our Little Mill Media, who is our sponsors for this. And they're the ones that are, I shouldn't say sponsors, they're actually the ones that are making the production happen. These guys are great. They're handling my business not management, but advertisement as well. And they're just doing a fantastic job. And so, yeah, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time.